Welcome to the IDP Hunting Ground. I'm your host, Steve Hungarter. My Twitter handle is IDP Hunter. I am a writer over at the Fantasy Six Pack as well as over at IDP Guys. I'm also an ECR ranker. I'm number 4 for last season with IDP. Tonight, we're going to discuss free agent signings, what we find intriguing, and what exactly, how does free agency work? I'm joined with my co-host, AJ Veal at the Baby Cows. AJ Veal is a former 2-time writer as well. He used to write for the U.S. Army as well as the Fantasy Wingnut, and his analyzation of the NFL is highly coveted, and I appreciate you coming on the show. How are you doing, AJ?
Good, brother. Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, excited, man. This is free agency. This is the dead time of the year. I'm just happy to talk football, brother.
Ain't that the truth? Now, before we kind of go down the rabbit hole too much, I kind of wanted to talk to the audience at home about free agency in general. There's 2 styles of free agency. There's restricted free agency and there's unrestricted free agency. Restricted free agency is players that are under 3 years or more. But basically they have a qualified offer, obviously, and they stick with the team, and that's where they go. Restricted free agent is exactly what it is. He's restricted. But the unrestricted free agents, that's kind of where this gets a little spicy. When players and teams are pursuing bigger contracts, those are the guys that are free to sign wherever they want to, and those guys they're allowed to be unrestricted free agents. They have 4 years or more in the NFL, so we see that a lot, the restricted and the unrestricted free agents. And I think that matters so much, AJ, and I'll ask you as well, especially when you're dealing with rookies, like top rookie picks, those first couple rounds, they get those exclusive offers where a guy like in the 7th round, it wouldn't really matter if Brock Purdy was a 7th round Mr. Irrelevant or if he was a free agent signing. He probably would have made more money as a free agent pickup, a walk-on starter than actually getting drafted. But it's kind of like the ebbs and flows of how this restricted free agent rookie signings contract is kind of the ebbs and flows of how that stuff works, which I think is kind of neat. Any thoughts on that, AJ?
Yeah, I mean, these teams are playing long-term, right? They're looking ahead. They're planning. They're organizing. Did they plan for Brock Purdy to be Brock Purdy? No one really knows. Is it Shanahan or, the GM? But, yeah, man, this free agency's it's filling in the gaps, right? We're waiting for the draft, and then it's dead period. So this is as exciting as I get. Looked at a couple guys that are sticking out to me for the good, the bad, the ugly. Just happy to be able to talk about it on a Saturday night, brother.
Question for you. In regards to that, I guess we can kind of break it down to 3 categories. Free agents that intrigue you, free agents that are undervalued, free agents that are overvalued. Let's start with intriguing prospects. What are some players that intrigue you?
Yeah, really one stuck out to me without digging too deep, and that was Tony Pollard. Mm-hmm. He is very intriguing, right? We saw what he did as the bell cow last year, right? It wasn't a horrible season, but we expected a little bit more. I see him as more of a compliment, like he was with Zeke. Does he thrive as a starter with another team? Do they need a Thunder Lightning type duo? I don't know. Am I willing to pay him any money? Or if I could just get the same type of production, from a Dylan Loeb, I could draft in the 6th round this year.
I think too with the Tony Pollards, people were always assuming big things out of Pollard. He actually did have 1,005 yards last season, 252 attempts. So that averages to a nice, neat 4.0 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns. Yeah. I think what people don't realize, and you're right, compliments the key word. A Dylan Love would be excellent there. Pollard has never been a in between the tackles kind of runner, and that's what they're kind of expecting with the ground and pound Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, and I would just like him to go to a team and let's see if he can really do it. Because last year maybe it was a fluke, but he was just so dynamic as a number 2, and I'd like to see that again. He's from a smaller school too at Memphis. So to come in and be a playmaker like he was, but I mean, I even had him in fantasy, dude. There was weeks I was just like, really, Tony? Come on, dude. We think you're better than this. We know you have the potential. But I've got kind of who I think should pick him up. I would like to see him on the Raiders or the Cardinals. I think with the Cardinals, they would have to draft somebody. I know they got DeMarcado. I'm not sure if Connors is going to be healthy or around. But the Raiders, with the Jacob situation, there's a thunder and lightning with White right there. So
I am so shocked, and this may be one of your players, so I don't want to kind of give it away or not. I am so shocked that Jacobs was like a castaway. I mean, I thought he did pretty good considering the state of that team.
Yeah. I mean, but look back to last offseason, right? And the things that went down. I think it was just kind of cut and clean. We'll focus on Devontae Adams. We'll start trying to develop a quarterback, or we'll ride it out. We have a new leadership. Max Crosby, we won games we shouldn't have won. Aiden O'Connell looks like Farva. What kind of quarterback do you want? I don't know. I like the Raiders for some reason. Not Al Davis's haircut, but I would like to see Pollard in a Raider uniform. But yeah, that's it for my intrigues. I've got 3 undervalued and 3 overvalued to cover.
Okay, which way you want to go next? You want to do undervalued?
Yeah. Let's talk undervalued. And first and foremost, we're going to talk about King Henry, right? Last episode kind of talked about the Titans briefly. Thought it was a mistake. They fired Vrabel. I think it's a mistake. They don't bring this dude back. You have Will Levis. There's nobody else behind him. If Tannehill's gone, then we have the kid from Liberty. We don't even know if he can, throw average 60% completion percentage. So Derrick Henry is critical for quarterback development to help push the ball downfield off play action. But with the new regime, it might change. Plus, he might be 30, right? And this 30-year-old running back thing is kind of taking over the league. He's 6'3", 245. Nobody wants to tackle a 50-year-old with that much, and I really want to see him go home. I would love to see him go to the Jags instead of destroy the Jags every season. I'd like to see him play for Jags.
I mean, in 2023, he had 280 attempts, 1,167 yards, 4.2, 12 darn touchdowns. And, the knock on him has always been he can't catch or he doesn't catch the ball. Well, he had 28 receptions, so that goes out the window. Last couple of years he's been doing that. Maybe it's because we're expecting so much out of him from these 2,000-yard seasons. Now he's only getting 1,100. I don't know. That's still a quality dude. That's still a quality player. Yeah. Teams are getting franchise tagged for less, right? But then on top of that, that running back position's kind of, kicked at a curb nowadays, as well as linebacker. Don't get me started on linebacker. But I think it is, and I'll ask you as well, do you think it's the age thing? You think that's why Derrick Henry is so undervalued right now? Because I'd argue he should be overvalued, but he's not. You're right. In these fantasy drafts, he's getting kicked to the curb a little bit. Yeah. Do you think it's the age?
It's got to be the age thing. I don't see him as like a diva type player either to cause some type of issue. It might just be new regime. Vrabel's out. We got a lot of stuff going on. We got to figure out money. He's not in our long-term plans. Let's just mutually part ways. And he just so happens to be 30.
Yeah, and this is where the dynasty game and the age cliff kind of plays against players. But I can see a smart fantasy owner picking him up, getting another 3 years, top 6 production. I mean, that's being mild right there, top 6 production next 2-3 years. But I think that's a good one if you consider him undervalued. I agree with you as well.
Yeah, I see him going to the Ravens. I'd like to see him on Jags, but everywhere I'm looking, it's saying Ravens. And that makes sense, right? They're a run-first team. Okay, you have to tackle Lamar and the King. No way. So we'll talk about my second guy. Now, I really, really like this guy as a human being. I want to hang out with him. We'll smoke cigs together. I don't know. But it's Gardner Minshew, okay? And if you're listening, Gardner, you need to start a podcast with Blake Bortles. You guys can talk about construction work, mullets, and beef jerky recipes. I just like this guy, man. He's got a really cool story. He's an underdog. Everybody likes an underdog story. Comes in last year, and he starts, and he actually does. He's fun to watch. Kind of reminds me of like a Brett Favre-ish. Who's a player comparison if you could pick from Gardner?
Well, I'm looking at when I'm thinking Minshew. I mean, he finished 17th in 2023, 3,305 yards, tied for 21st. QBR 59.6. He's one of those guys that got some moxie. And again, I'm a little older than you or maybe my audience. I remember when Jim Harbaugh was considered a journeyman quarterback, and he went from the Bears to the Colts. And there was this impressive run. You may have remembered this. The Colts were one catch away, and it was in the darn end zone, and the guy bobbled the ball and fell down from beating the Steelers and going on and moving on to the championship, going on to a Super Bowl. He was known as the comeback kid. So when I think of Gardner Minshew, I think of a similar Colts player. I think of that, or maybe even a Frank Reich type, but that's what I think. I think of guys that may not have the pedigree, but have the moxie. Rocky Balboa, if that was a real character, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. What says you on that?
Spot on, man. I couldn't have said that any better. I've got two teams I think should go after him. And if you watched last episode, I talked about Kirk Cousins. But Vikings, just go be a Viking. They did with Brett Favre, bring in Brett Favre 2.0 or put him on the Rams. Wait for Stafford to get hurt again. You got a decent team. They won games last year. They were competitive with Cup being hit and miss along the way. Puka balled. Defense is there. For some reason, Aaron Donald still hasn't retired. He talks about it every season. So maybe he goes to the Rams,
Another good comp on him. I don't know if you remember Ryan Fitzpatrick's. He had a couple. Ryan Fitzpatrick had a couple. I think he had a good year with the Bills. He had a good year with the Jets. But when you actually pull the data, which I don't have in front of me, Brandon Marshall was catching a lot of those balls, and some were touchdowns, but they could have been 2 inches away from being an interception. That's what I see with Minshew. I see good but not great accuracy. I see somebody who's middle of the pack passer rating. I see somebody who has the mentality and the moxie to throw the ball down the field. A guy who has the mentality, next play, work the sidelines, that sort of thing. I kind of like Minshew too. And I was thinking when you were asking that question, where does he fit in modern day NFL? If he's the 20th, 25th best player, like a Carson Wentz type, like those kind of guys, where do they fit? Are there teams? Like, can you think of some teams now? Like, would he be an upgrade over Aiden O'Connell with the Raiders? Like, where would he fit? How many teams are actually looking for a player type QB1? Where would he fit?
I think he's at the bottom of the QB1, but not far from the top of being probably the best number 2, and you're right. The Raiders could go and get him. It would be an upgrade, but how much are they going to pay? Because let's just say the Chiefs, former Jags quarterback, Blaine Gabbert backs up Mahomes. We'll get Gabbert out of there. He's 90 years old. We're bringing Minshew. We can sign him for $1 million because we can guarantee we're going to make playoffs. And he's a serviceable backup. Or do they pay him Raider money to come be our starter? It's like, because he can get paid both ways because he's right there at the end in the top.
I don't want to waste a whole lot of time, with your analysis talking about Gardner Minshew, but it's an interesting case study. Off the top of my head, Denver Broncos don't have a team quarterback right now. Right. The Falcons, they're always pitter-pattering with Ritter, right? You got the Steelers in flux. The Vikings did pretty darn well with Dobbs, and Dobbs was throwing wounded ducks down the field, right? Yeah. The Jets got Rodgers, and who knows after that? So let's see, the Jets, Vikings, Steelers, Broncos, possibly Raiders. Those are 5 teams right there that he would kind of just land on. I mean, there's a potential for that, I think.
Yeah. And even if he doesn't start, he's going to push your quarterback so they don't lose their job. You know what I'm saying? So, Vikings, Rams is my pick realistically. the Raiders make sense, but I can't have every single player on my free agency going to the Raiders, right?
Right.
They know they have holes. They're working on it. All right, we'll move on to the next guy, the last one that's undervalued in my eyes. And I'll tell you my reasons. Tyler Boyd from the Bengals. Okay. We'll read off a stat line to you just over his career. 120 career games, 513 catches, 6,000 yards on the dot, and 31 touchdowns. Okay. This is his 9th season. All right. He can still play, right? But if we look at this free agency, there's so many big names out there who are going to get paid more than they should make, but they're going to perform as good as Tyler Boyd does. You can probably get him close to the veteran minimum. I don't see anybody overpaying this guy.
Right.
But he's still going to be a quality number 2, right? These are other wide receivers that are probably going to get signed for more money. Calvin Ridley, Hollywood, Odell Beckham, Gabe Davis, and even Darnell Mooney from the Bears. I still think you can save money and get a quality player out of Tyler Boyd, and he can lead the locker room, at least the wide receiver group, and kind of teach them. He's been around for 9 years.
He was a second-round pedigree way back in 2016. And, he has filled in as a wide receiver 1 at times. He had 67 receptions last year. The problem with him is the 2 touchdowns. Oh, well, touchdowns is a fluky sport. But, yeah, Tyler Boyd, I see that too. I actually made a trade in one of my leagues. I traded out Tyler Boyd because I know he's a free agent. I know that's some people are kicking the tires. I traded my first-round pick because I won this league, right? Mm-hmm. And just giving the audience at home kind of some strategies they can work. My first-round pick for this guy's first-round pick, who was a bottom team.
Yeah.
I gave him Tyler Boyd and my first-round pick for his first-round pick in the 3rd round. Kind of looks like a neutral deal. Kind of looks like a good deal. The first cancel each other out, whatever. But when you think about it, I was at the bottom. I was 1.14 pick. I just moved up to the 1.3 pick because of Tyler Boyd. So if you're out there, thank you, Tyler Boyd. Those are the kind of strategies I like to employ, especially in the offseason. The offseason should be your most active time. I don't know why teams close down their waiver wire, their trading block. You're wasting valuable time. Guys like us, we're grinding. Guys like us are trying to get this intel before anybody else gets it.
Yeah. I sent 3 trades this week.
Did you?
0 responses. It's just sitting there. And it's like, do I remove it? Do I wait? Do I message them? Would it be weird if I messaged them in the off season? I think about all this stuff. And so I just leave them sitting there. I'm like, maybe they'll look. I don't know.
I don't. For people that don't benefit, I put a timer on it. That's my favorite thing. You got an hour or 2 hours to figure it out. It's not going to change. Mace was on here the other day, Mace Riney, and he was talking about that 32-team league of mine. He's like, I can't get anything working. Maybe I'm not an undervalued team. And I told him, let me look at it because eventually I'm going to get bored and I'm going to try to work something out. It's like
I was actually trying to make moves in Empire. So I have confidence in my team now after I beat you and made it to the finals. I was like, I'm one more move away from actually beating you on not a fluke.
So for the audience at home that doesn't know what an empire is if you win your league, you get half the pot, but the money keeps going for 6 years. So whoever has the most championships or points in the next 6 years, they get the whole pot. Or if they go back to back and win the league, AJ was close to winning it this league this year. I won it the first season, so we're in year 4, I believe. But yeah, so that's what an empire kind of is. We have a 20 team, and it's insane. That playoff was insane this year. I think all the top seeds got taken out. Yeah. So that's funny that you referenced that league. Is that your favorite league?
Oh, for sure. I do like the home league that you've been doing forever, and I subbed in for. I enjoyed that league.
That's going on 19 years now.
Yeah. The toughest league I'm in is your defense league. I came in, I don't think I drafted my team, and I'm trying to make moves and find those diamonds.
Yeah.
But linebackers are so coveted, it kills me.
It's so hard because you got to know your scoring. It's so hard trying to figure out how you value or how people overvalue their players, keyword being overvalue there. We don't know what they're going to do. And on that note too, AJ, you have one more category of free agents. You have a couple overvalued players. So I'm kind of curious in your mind or your thoughts or your expert analysis, who do you have as an overvalued player?
I've got 3. I've got a tackle and 2 wide receivers.
Okay.
All right. And I want to ask you a question leading into the first one. I'm going to talk about the tackle. When you go to Publix, let's just say you shop at Publix, and you want a bag of chips, do you buy the Lay's for $3.49, or do you get Publix brand for $2.99?
I get Publix $2.99. I'm a cheap person, but I don't know about you. That's what I would do.
You go with the more affordable one, right? You don't go for the name brand.
So I think I know where this question's going, right? If it's a guard or a tackle, I'm going to go get the guy who's just going to block for me. I want the sack of potatoes. I don't need filet mignon. I'm going to get that on my receivers and my quarterbacks.
Yep. So I don't want the name brand. I'm not paying name brand prices because the Publix chips taste just as good as the name brand. All right.
Right.
Tyron Smith from the Cowboys. Okay. Let's see this. Missed 33 games the past 4 seasons. Dude wants to get paid like he's 26 years old and he's still all pro back to back, the top 5 left tackles. I'm not paying that money, but someone's going to pay it, right? It's going to be like Giants or Commanders. It's a team that needs an O-line upgrade. They want to be flashy. They have the money to spend. I'm not paying that money. I'm not doing it. The name recognition is cool and all, or like we talked about with Minshew. What if the Chiefs are like, yo, dude, you want to win a Super Bowl? Come block for the blind side, veteran minimum. I don't see that because I see him wanting to make money. But I see a team like the Giants or the Commanders paying to bring him in and help. So number two, wide receiver, Calvin Ridley, right? I am baffled that he was 1,000-yard receiver. Okay. Press Taylor should not be the offensive coordinator for a flag football league. I'm not kidding. It was hard to watch. Calvin was coming off a year of injury and a year of gambling in his suspension. I didn't expect him to come in and be a number 1, but it was like he disappeared. Okay. And I want to reference this. Okay. He didn't break 50 yards receiving 9 times. Half the year he didn't go over 50. He had 136 targets, 76 catches. So he almost didn't catch 50% of the passes thrown his way. Could have been that the O-line was horrible. I think they're ranked 28th. Trev was throwing, but he was scrambling for his life. They were usually down. So he had big drops too. So I don't think where his career trajectory was going, he deserves to get paid like he's going to get paid.
I wouldn't. I didn't know where you were going with that, but just playing Dynasty in general, do you know that dude is 29 years old already?
Yeah.
And not to put, I don't like to talk poorly about players or especially young guys coming out of draft, but there were some issues. He had a couple suspensions. We know about that. Getting out from high school to college, and it took a minute. I think he was a 23-year-old in college, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to remember the numbers on him.
He just wrapped up his. I think he just got off his rookie contract.
That's it. When I started when I started prospecting him, he's a 23-year-old junior at that point. I'm like, well, why? Why is that? Because it took him so long to get from high school to college, and then he gets to the pros. When he finally gets to the pros, he got the suspension, then he had the injury year, and before you know it, he's 29 years old. Talent is there, but I don't know am I going to pay this was the second contract now? Am I going to pay top money for a guy that supposed to be on the decline pretty soon for wide receivers, according to the age cliff? So you're right. Maybe a desperate team out there would need that. Well, let me ask you this too: what teams actually do need a bona fide wide receiver 1 right now?
So
about that.
I don't see any team signing him to be a number one. I don't.
Right.
You know, the Jags had the option to sign him by a certain time, but they would have to give up a second round pick, or the third round pick would have turned into a 2.
I can see the Patriots doing it, a wide receiver 1, but I can't think of any other team that would pay him top money.
No. I have 2 interesting ones on here. I did not go with the fact of a team treating him as a 1 because I don't think he is. Christian Kirk had a much better year, and Evan Ingram balled out.
Yeah.
Is Buffalo. Gabe Davis is gone. He would be a great number 2 across from Diggs, as long as Diggs sticks actually around. But a fun one that I would enjoy to watch. He might be a 3, but they also drafted a rookie last year, is the Seahawks.
Yeah, right. Right. I don't see that
working. Let Geno run that West Virginia offense and just go 5 wide every play. You have
so today on my last podcast, you kind of broke with breaking news about Jalen Johnson getting re-signed, which was huge. Today, Tyler Lockett got signed. He got locked up.
Okay.
He got re-signed. Yeah. So it's a done deal over there. They're keeping the receivers they got in place.
Yeah. So Buffalo probably wants to play for a contender. Is he going to miss on the income tax going from New York to Florida?
It's actually it's a 2-year, $30 million deal Tyler Lockett's getting. So there you go, right there.
15 a year. Wow. Good for him.
There you go.
I like him. He's a good compliment to DK. If he actually puts up quite decent fantasy stats too.
I was so shocked in your last podcast, guys like Barkley, guys like Jacobs. Now I know the position is kind of in the dumps now, but those kind of guys represent their teams, and it's a night and day difference when they're not on the field. But those were the ones to me that I was very shocked. That are either intriguing or undervalued based on how you look at it. Yeah. Do you have any other overvalued players?
One more, and then that's it, I swear. He's got a cool name, but the name needs to match up with the style of player he is or the production. And this guy has 1 year of production in 5 seasons. Hollywood Brown.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So 5 years, 1,000-yard season. And then the Ravens shipped him out. They're like, man, this guy is not who we thought he was. He's serviceable. Yeah, he's decent, but he's not who we thought he was. Oh, he balls out, goes 1,000 yards. Let's trade him and get high value for him, right? And this was interesting too. So we see this guy as like a burner. He's like 5'9", $178. He's shifty, supposed to be. His longest play from scrimmage in the last 3 seasons. Guess how long it is?
Oh, I don't even know. Yeah.
49 yards for a guy that's supposed to run like a 4.3. 49 yards is his longest play from scrimmage.
Oh, geez.
I'm not paying a 5'9", 180-pound wide receiver major money to put up average. You can sign a guy like Tyler Boyd. So I'll pass. I think 2 teams that should look at him, though, is the Titans. He would complement DeAndre Hopkins. They could let Treylon Burks keep developing or just be this average at best player, or send him to the Steelers. They need help with wide receiver core. I think that's where Hollywood might fit in decent. But, yeah, I was very surprised when I saw his longest play was 49 yards. Could be that he's on the Cardinals the last couple of years, and who's throwing the ball out there.
Yeah, I have no thoughts on Hollywood as well. I'm it's nice that him and Murray, they went to college together, they have that chemistry, but it doesn't really seem to be something I'm targeting or panning out. Yeah. But some of these players I can't help myself and not see on another team. You know what I mean? Like, what says you about that?
Yeah, it's like some guys are perfect for that team, right? They look right in that uniform. Troy Aikman in the Cowboys uniform. OJ rocking the Bills. Here's a weird one that looked weird to me, even though it was true. I never thought it would happened. And then I did a deep dive, and it was really on I saw it on Who Killed the Fullback. It was one of the Manning, universe episodes. And it was Jerome Bettis as a Charger.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. It was like, what? So
you were asking me a question offline, and I don't want to make this any longer, but just to wrap it up, but you were asking me a question about players on different teams. I thought that was interesting if you want to put that on the podcast.
Yeah. I was just saying, can you name a player that you can't picture in any other uniform? It just wouldn't be right. It's sacrilege. You're breaking doctrine. It doesn't sit right with you. Who
and I thought about that question because, like, for me, Barkley, the Giants, Henry of the Titans, but those guys are getting ready to move, So everything's kind of on the table nowadays. It's not like back in the old days. I guess because I'm a defensive guy, I would say Aaron Donald of the Rams to me. That's what I would do. I'm not, I think defense. What says you? I think that's a good question. No, it's a fun question, especially for a free agent episode.
Yeah. I'll go with a throwback, and then I'll give you a current. Mike Allstott's my throwback. I want 270-pound, 4'4", fullback, running back, tailback, whatever Mike Allstott was, monster out of the backfield. I want him rocking creamsicle. I have a creamsicle Allstott jersey upstairs. But then like current player that you can't picture in any other uniform. It's like the quarterbacks, right? The most sacred position. Peyton Manning dipping out of the Colts and going to Denver. It didn't sit right with me. It didn't look right. When you think of Brett Favre, you think of the Packers. You don't think of the 19 other teams that he drug it out with. Just off the top of my head, player that would look weird, who is the best at his position? Justin Tucker. He's a Raven. I want to see him be a Raven for the next 20 years because kickers never get hurt, and he'll just keep riding the wave as being number one. Hopefully he breaks the record again for the longest kick.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So this kicks off the first installment of the free agency of 2024. This was the offense edition. I'm going to come back on and do an additional episode on defense and where I think they kind of fit in the line. That's a little bit harder because, defensive guys are kind of interchangeable schemes. So that one's going to be a little bit longer of a digest. But please, if you guys enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing. You'll have me and many other co-hosts on the show. AJ's on here as well. If you guys need to find AJ, that's his Twitter handle @TheBabyCows. He's also in many sleeper leagues. It was so good to have you on today, AJ. Any closing thoughts?
Another fun Saturday night, man. Stay safe. Do you know where your kids are?
And that concludes this podcast. And like I said, we'll see you for the next one. We're going to do is IDP free agents. And we're also going to do a sleepers pod this week. Okay. Stay safe out there. And thanks for listening.